The reality is there's a lot of people out there who don't hear well, but don't really know who to ask or what to do, and I think are curious about, did this help fix your problem or not? Yeah, so my name is Trevor Chapman, and I'm the principal at Normal Community High School. Honestly, I would say 2 years ago, I started to notice some ringing in my ears. And I didn't think a lot of it because it wasn't really interrupting any of my daily activities. For me, as the principal of a high school, most of my day is spent in some louder environments, whether that be in the hallway with a lot of students, or in a gymnasium, or even some outdoor spaces where there's a lot of background noise. I would say the gymnasium is probably the worst with the sound bouncing off the walls. In a space like that, it made it incredibly difficult to hear conversations that were close by. Really, all I heard was, the loud roar in the background or the loud roar in front of me, instead of being able to have conversations with those that are, close to me in proximity. And so that made it very challenging in those spaces, as well as in any circumstance that I was in where there's background noise, which is a lot of places that you go. I might be with a group of 3 or 4 people, and there were times when I could not hear any of the conversation that was happening very closely. And really, again, all I heard was that background noise from around me, which was very frustrating because I found myself then prompting the group or kind of prompting myself sometimes with, what was that? Or could you say that one more time? Or I'm sorry, I didn't get any of that, over and over and over again. I remember specifically being in a meeting, and there were probably 50 people in the room, but I was at a table with 5. And we had a conversation that was really probably extending for 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes, and I barely caught any of the conversation. And this is really when I noticed it more at home, was when my wife said, the volume on the television is really high. And I said, I don't think so. It doesn't seem high to me. And she said, well, it is. It's really, really loud. And so it's not that I didn't believe her. It's that in my mind, it just did not seem very loud. In fact, at times it would seem kind of muffled. And I was catching myself turning my head thinking I was, going to get a better angle to hear the sound, when in actuality, I just was not hearing enough of what was happening in front of me. Another example is in the car. If I were driving or riding in the front seat and people were behind me, if the kids were in the back seat, they might call my name 2 or 3 times, and I wouldn't even know they were calling my name until, my wife or someone would say, Trevor, the kids are saying your name in the back seat, and I would turn around, and of course my children are like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I didn't hear you. And so that's what made this challenging, really, is whether it was small spaces or large spaces, it was the same sort of situation. I was missing a lot. And that's when I realized if I don't act and I don't move forward with trying to get some assistance, then this is going to be the rest of my life. I'm going to have to do something to fix this problem. And so, that coupled with the times that I'm missing people hearing my name in different settings and going out with friends to a restaurant or out to an event and then not catching parts of it because there are conversations happening around me. And I found myself smiling and nodding when I didn't catch what was being said. And so that sort of frustration kind of led to me reaching out and saying, I think I need some more help with this. So in my family, I have some cousins who got hearing aids, I would say earlier in their life as well. And so I had reached out to a couple of them and said, listen, when did you get these hearing aids? What was your experience like? And they kind of walked me through what they did, which ended up being very true in my situation as well. For many of them, it started with tinnitus. And so it was hearing the ringing in the ears, and then coming up with what their solution was, which was hearing aids and how much it had helped them. And they had kind of talked with me about some of the new technology with regards to how it's connecting, through Bluetooth to your cell phone and how you can control them wirelessly and that sort of thing. And I think in my mind, I maybe had a 1975 view of what a hearing aid might be. I don't even know if they were around 1975, but it was going to be very manual and I would have to make the adjustments myself, which in actuality is not the case. As I had mentioned before, my wife had said, the TV is kind of loud. And I started to notice that I was missing people saying my name around me. And so that gradually got worse. And so a year or so ago, I went and saw someone and I said, hey, I'm having some issues hearing. And they said, yeah, there's some mild hearing loss, but nothing that we can do a lot with right now. And so I kind of asked around, as time went on, and I said, do you have any audiologists that you recommend? I don't really know any audiologists in town. And someone said, Dr. Chalmers would be a good person for you to try and reach out to. And so I did. And I came in for a comprehensive exam, and she confirmed that, yeah, we need a little help. Yeah, I was a little nervous. I had seen a different doctor before and had kind of an idea, but I was hoping for a pretty comprehensive look into what the problem was. And like most people, I had Googled 1,000 times what the different issues were, what could cause it. And I thought, are there some things that are happening in my life? Am I exposing myself to sounds that I shouldn't be and that sort of thing? And I kind of had an idea going in that I really didn't. I don't abuse my hearing. I don't go to places that are excessively loud very often. And so I was hopeful going in that there would be an answer. And I knew that answer might include getting hearing aids. And I had kind of decided at that point, I'm fine. That's fine. I'm fine with that. I'm excited to have something that fixes this problem. And that's when I saw Dr. Chalmers and kind of had that first appointment. Meeting Dr. Chalmers once I was kind of brought back into a room and going into a soundproof booth for the testing. And I remember thinking, based upon the amount of equipment in that room and the questions that she was asking prior to, I felt pretty good because I thought, I feel like I'm going to get an exam that's going to identify the problem and hopefully get me on a path to fix it for the benefit of my own life. And so, I went into and was in there for a while and answered a lot of questions. And the questions that she was asking, I could tell that she was trying to create or mimic different environments for me to listen in. I remember specifically sitting in this booth and it was trying to mimic me sitting in like a coffee house. So I could hear people talking around me and someone was talking to me through a speaker and I was trying to decipher what that person was saying. And as the level of volume went up around me, I lost that. I could not hear that person pretty quickly. And that's when I kind of had this sense that, Dr. Chalmers was really trying to identify what can and can't you hear, and then how do we isolate that to fix it. When I went into the fitting room that's there in the practice, and she was giving me at that time, the doctor was giving me at that time, a pair to just try on and to have, so I could have a sense of what they feel like in my ears, but then what I would be picking up on once they were on. And I specifically remember sitting in the chair across from her and she turned them on and I could hear the pen and the paper that was on the desk being shuffled around and my feet and the doctor's feet kind of moving around on the carpet and Dr. Chalmers hitting the keys on the keyboard. Sounds that I know what those sounds are, but it's been a long time since I heard them. And it was almost startling at first about regarding how much I had missed and how much I probably should have been hearing, but had kind of forgotten that those sounds existed all the time. And there was a loud truck that had gone by in the background, and I thought, wow, that was really loud, and it is loud. But in my mind, I hadn't really heard those loud sounds in a while. And so I was just picking up on the really small things that happened in a room that was already very quiet, because it was just her and I in there, and she was connecting me to the devices that she was going to fit me with. And so it was almost startling just to hear, this is what I've been missing for a while. At first, there were just the little things, just shuffling, if I touched my pants or my shirt, or I had, itched my head or touched my face, things that don't seem to be very loud. But there is a sound associated with those things that I just was missing. Conversations in another room where I could hear people having, someone was just on the phone or that sort of thing. The door opening where I heard the door handle turn, the door open, the door click shut, whereas before it might have been more muffled where I didn't hear all of the details in that. My voice was very loud. I felt like Dr. Chalmers' voice was very loud, but in actuality, we were just speaking in a very, normal tone of voice. And so it really, for me, was the details that came through. And I thought, man, I really have missed a lot of things going on around me due to not being able to hear very well. I would say Dr. Chalmers was very good at giving me a lot of options. I tried a set of hearing aids that I thought I would really like, and she thought that I would really like as well. And I had them for 2 or 3 weeks, and it wasn't exactly what I wanted. I didn't like the way they looked. Honestly, they weren't very discreet. They worked well, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted. And I was able to go back. She swapped them out with a different set that were perfect. And that's the set that we ended up ordering. So I felt very comfortable with the process. I didn't feel rushed. She answered all the questions that I had, and really got the set that I think was right for me. And there are a ton of options out there. So it did not take me very long at all. Honestly, when I put my hearing aids in, they're easy to take in and take out. They're rechargeable. I can take them on the go. They're not, I don't have to worry about the battery life not lasting. I mean, the reality is the technology is unbelievable. They're fairly small and discreet. Honestly, I don't notice them in my ears. I would say for the first couple of days, I would kind of remember that I had them in and I would kind of fidget with them, but that was very short-lived, and it's been great. I had a very quick transition from not being able to hear things around me and being able to hear like everyone else. I was able to, control some of the settings from my phone. And it was good. When I was having those meetings with Dr. Chalmers, she asked me a lot of questions about the environments I'm in, and she helped, create some of those custom settings for those environments that I can switch between. Whether I'm going to be outside at an athletic event, or I'm in a gymnasium that's really loud, or I'm in a crowded hallway, or I'm listening to music, or, those sorts of things, as we talked through what the things that I do in my life that are of interest to me, or that I do as part of my job, I was really able to navigate those things fairly easily and control them from my phone and could kind of, flip between those environments easily. And, I immediately noticed in places where there was background noise, I could carry on conversations. For me, it's the technology that it just blows my mind, that the fact that it can really separate between focusing on the voices around me and everything else is pretty amazing. And of course, my wife was happy that the television volume didn't have to be so loud. And I realized at that point, I would turn the volume up and my wife would say, "That's where you used to keep the volume." And I said, "This is obnoxiously loud." And she said, "Well, this is what it was." And so I turned it down and I realized, okay, this is where it should be versus where we had it at one time. So, in reality, my hearing loss is still considered fairly mild compared, when you look at it across the whole spectrum. But it has been interesting because since I was fitted for the hearing aids, even the set that I wore prior to the final set that I ended up with, a lot of people asked. They said, "Can I ask you some questions about them?" Yeah. And it was everything from price to comfort to style to whether it works, because the reality is there's a lot of people out there who don't hear well, but don't really know who to ask or what to do. And I think are curious about, did this help fix your problem or not? Or is it something that's affordable? Is it something that I can get here in town? Who would I call? Because the average person may not know an audiologist. I was one of those people. So it has been interesting. A lot of people have asked questions about, do they work? Do they really make a difference? And so I'm able to say, yes, they absolutely make a difference. And I wouldn't go back to the way it was prior to. So it's been interesting how those conversations come up now. I know a lot of people in our community, I think, are comfortable asking me those sorts of questions, which is fine. I would say make an appointment and talk with somebody who can help answer all your questions. I think there's a lot of miscommunication out there about the purpose of a hearing aid, how much a hearing aid costs. Insurance can sometimes be complicated to navigate if your insurance will help. I will tell you that the folks at Bloomington-Normal Audiology helped navigate that for me, made some phone calls to try and figure out what was covered and what wasn't. And that can kind of help, I think, patients make decisions about the kinds that might suit them best. I would say, too, websites for manufacturers provide so much information. And so I think people would be very surprised, too, at how you don't need to be a tech-savvy person to operate them, but the incredible technology that is embedded in hearing aids now in this day and age has to be a million times more advanced than it once was, when hearing aids probably first came out, and it really is unbelievable. And It's way more high tech than I thought it would be, but yet very easy to use and to maintain. They don't cause me a lot of work to have them, and they're on the go and they charge quickly, and it's what I'd hoped. Honestly, it's turned into having a set of earbuds. Only this set of earbuds helps me hear things on the outside as opposed to, just listening to music. Yeah, I would say it took away a struggle that I really was having from the time I woke up in the morning clear through the end of the day. And that was a two-part thing. Really, one is that I wasn't hearing what I needed to hear. And two, I had a strong ringing in my ears, which, hearing aids didn't cure that, but it really negated the effects that I was feeling day in and day out. And because I can take in more sound around me, I don't notice the tinnitus as much. I can if I focus on it, but honestly, I don't really, because I'm hearing everything around me for the first time in a long time. And I think that's a neat transition from before, when that's really all I could focus on, and it just became something that was inhibiting things in my life. And I think for a lot of people, that is what pushes them over to, okay, I'm going to move forward and see if I can fix this, versus I think I can live with it. The reality is you probably don't have to live with it. You can go most likely make an appointment with a doctor and get some answers and get lots of options. And you can try out, different sets. And I think once somebody puts hearing aids in for the first time and they turn on and you realize all of the sounds around you, it kind of sells itself as an important part of your life.